You are listening to Talking Images, the official podcast of icmforum.com.
Welcome back, everyone. This could be one of our most controversial episodes to date, as we have someone here who does not only think watching films at the cinema isn't particularly special or important, but who actually thinks they can hurt the film experience. Oh, listeners, I know how that may hurt very deeply for many of you. But how much of a minority opinion is it really? And even if we love the cinema experience, you can't really argue that it's become less and less important. We've had the advent of streaming. So many films, even big films, are barely shown on the big screen at all. And home setups have become pretty good. We have larger screens, it's relatively cheap to set up home theaters, and once again, more and more streaming services are popping up. We have Oscar nominees that you essentially can only see on streaming services in many countries. The world is changing. So should we just tell cinemas to F off, not care if they close down, and just embrace that watching films from home is just so much more comfortable? Or do we need to fight? And that's what this episode is about. So let's get this all started and see if it turns into a bit of a boxing match here, as we have two Australians squaring off. On one side, we have Saul, a man we have battled many times in the past. In particular, on his love of doing chores and working out with a film running in front of him. But this time, he's on the side of film purism. I hope this puts a smile on Tom's face if he's listening, as Saul is all in for the cinema experience. In fact, I think you might have seen 2 or 3 films at the cinema just today. And on the other side, we have Lauren, who Saul recently pushed into seeing Nosferatu on the big screen with him, and apparently it was not that great an experience. And it was also not the first time for her. In fact, she told us before recording this that she often feels that seeing a film at a cinema can hurt the films she's seeing. Oh, and I'm Chris, I'm here too, so is Adam, but we're probably not as interesting as the Australians today. So let's start with you, Lauren. Why is it that you feel that seeing a film at the cinema can actually hurt the film?
Well, for me, the cinema is just like a place of sensory overload. And when I watch a movie, I generally like to be by myself in a dark room with like nothing else around me. So at the cinema, it's just all I can hear is other people eating, talking, putting their phones on. And it's just not as comfortable as being at home.
Yeah, I can completely get that, to be honest. I mean, I've been relatively lucky, and a lot of the times I've gone to the cinema with the films I often do go to the cinema for, it's like me and sometimes no one else, sometimes 2-3 other people, so it's not as extreme. But if you get enough people in there, it can be absolute hell. People talking behind you, you have to sit up a little bit to see the people in front of you, constant noises from food. Yeah, definitely those are some big triggers for me as well. So I guess that's the main answer. And sensory overload and just people being terrible. But I guess that doesn't bother you too much, Saul. Did you see any films at the cinema today? And were you bothered by the things that Lauren is describing here?
Hi, Chris. Hi, everyone. I did actually just come home from watching a movie at the cinema. And no, I haven't seen 2 films at the cinema today, but I actually did see 2 films at 2 different cinemas yesterday. For me, I do get bothered by bad behavior at cinemas, but going to the movies is a little bit of a roll of the dice. Sometimes you get a great audience, sometimes you don't. But as long as it's not too packed and you don't have assigned seating, it's actually usually quite easy for me to move away somewhere else in the cinema and sit somewhere where I'm going to get a little bit less distracting. So for me, is it a sensory overload? I'd say not really. I don't think that's really a problem with me. The behavior of people, I guess, is the thing which is chancing a little bit. But for me, watching a film at the cinema is just so much more real for me. If I'm watching a movie at home, I've got a pause button, I've got a rewind button. I've got that ability to stop the movie and do something else and come back to it. And while that is sometimes useful, it's also a whole lot less immersive. So I actually find being at the cinema more immersive because I can't do that. Also because I don't like to be antisocial when I'm going out and watching a movie at the cinema. I'm not on my phone. Not that I'm on my phone all the time at home, but if I'm at home or whatever, I might get out the phone if the film's not too interesting and just refresh Letterboxd. And then if there is something to read, I might pause it and then whatever happens. If I'm at the cinema, that doesn't happen. What I'm mainly just doing is actually watching the film, which makes it more interesting and it's just less distracting. But it is kind of interesting because you do mention the whole film purism thing. If I watch a movie these days, it's pretty much either on my iPad at home or at the cinema. There's no halfway in between. I'm not really watching DVDs or Blu-rays, not really watching anything on TV. If I'm watching a film these days, it's either iPad or cinema, so just the two extremes in there. But of those two, the cinema is my preference. You get a good audience, and there's nothing better than that. You watch a comedy with an audience, it's probably one of the best things ever. Watch a horror film and hear the reactions to it. Again, one of the best films ever. It really enhances the experience, and there's a really great social component also about going to the movies. But I don't want to ramble on too much because I'm sure everybody else has got positives to say also. So I'll hand it back to Chris or straight on to Adam.
I love how you managed to probably turn a lot of our audience against you with that mouthful there. So yes, he's fighting for pure cinema experience, the beauty of seeing films at the cinema, but also he's seeing everything else on an iPad. That's it's maybe good that Tom is not a co-host for this episode, because it would just have devolved into film purism once again and him knocking his head against the table. So probably good for his health as well. And we'll add a little trigger warning for him before he listens. But what about you, Adam? Are you in a similar position to Sol, where it's either the big screen or the iPad, or are you closer to Lauren, where you might just be seeing it on a beautiful big screen at home and feel that the actual cinema experience can be a bit bothersome and frustrating thanks to all of the noisy people?
Well, in terms of my setup from home, I'm probably in between Sol and Lauren. I normally use my laptop, which it's not amazing in terms of watching films, but it's not awful. I think I would, hopefully longer term, I'll have a better setup like Lauren does. I would say if I watch a film in the cinema, then I generally have a better experience in terms of being fully immersed in the film without any distractions, kind of like Sol said. So I think normally my experience is better in the cinema. I don't do it that often. So, and I also think it depends on the film. So there are certain films I've seen on the laptop first and ended up watching them in the cinema because I liked them so much and I wanted a different experience of them. And yeah, there's films that really benefit from the cinema, I would say, whereas there's other ones that are totally fine on just watching from home.
Yeah, I'm in a similar boat as well, so Adam and I probably won't be as controversial as Saul and Lauren in this episode. Though I do have one pretty huge reveal that will make me a little bit controversial too, which is that I essentially haven't seen anything at the cinema since the pandemic. I think I've seen a few more, thinking about it now, because it's a very long time since the pandemic, and I might be mixing things together, but barely anything at the cinema since the pandemic. So I have a lot of catching up to do. I do have one big reason why not, and that's just the fact that Malta, where I live, has essentially no proper cinema. They have cinemas, but they barely show any films that are of interest to me these days. It's all blockbusters and B blockbusters, essentially. There's almost nothing else. Like, I remember they showed Haneke at one point. I went to see Happy End when that came out, but that's one of those times where I was the only person at the cinema, so I guess that's why they didn't continue showing those kinds of films, maybe. And I do have a membership at the art house, but they barely show any films these days, and it's mainly like live streams from the opera in the UK. So I have no idea what the hell is going on. I did see that there's 2 reasonably big films coming to the art house this month, so I might actually go out for those. Nosferatu is showing at the actual big cinemas, so I might go for that. But generally, the cinemas here are just showing abysmal films I just don't have any passion for seeing, and that's my main excuse. Like, if I lived in a scenario which like Saul has, where because Saul, you go out to see so many classics on the big screen all the bloody time, I keep getting jealous. Like, that would be absolutely fantastic to me. I will be going. I see Lauren writing that Perth didn't have anything like that until a couple of years ago. So, well, you have now, and I'm very jealous, very, very jealous. So yeah, if that ever changes, I'll be popping in and out too. But until then, it's probably not gonna be a regular thing, and it's sad because I am more on the side of Saul. I think that the cinema adds something special. I think the big screen is obviously where a lot of films, at least used to be, expected to be shown, and the add a degree of grandeur that can elevate even like half decent films can feel good on the big screen. It's just a much more pleasant experience, though. I am somewhere between, since I mostly watch from home. I do have a really big screen. I haven't set up a home theater yet. I might not have the space for it. I've been thinking about it, but I can't really find the best place to really get that done. But I do have a big screen, and I can enjoy, and I never, ever, ever, ever watch films on an iPad, a tablet, a phone, or a computer. Just to put that out there. Like, I'm very disappointed in both of you guys. Wow. So Adam said he was a bit jealous of your setup, Lauren. Like, what's your home setup since you don't go out?
I watch most films on my computer.
Damn it, Lauren. What's going on?
I have a big screen. And in my office, I was like, I can close the door. It's dark. Nothing's going to annoy me. But we also have we have a decent theater setup, but we don't have very good sound system sort of setup. So the TV is a good size. We got some nice recliners. If I watch films with my boyfriend, that's where I watch them. And if he goes out, I'll watch him out there. Because if he walks out of his room past the theater room, I can't. I have to pause the movie and wait for him to go away, even if he doesn't interact with me. So I don't like distractions at all when I'm watching. So yeah, that's my basic setup.
Yeah, fair enough. If it's a fairly big screen, it's not as terrible. I mean, my screens aren't that huge at the office, so I wouldn't probably do that. Though I remember when I was at uni, there was a period when I was watching on my computer. It does work, but it's not absolutely fantastic unless you put it really close to your face. For me, anyways. But I am very interested in that shared experience you and Saul had, because he managed to actually get you out, get you to the big screen and see Nosferatu. So Lauren, I'll ask Saul about his impressions after, how he feels knowing that you didn't really care for that experience. But what was your main takeaways from finally venturing out to the big screen again, seeing Nosferatu with Saul? How was it?
Well, we paid a little bit extra to get recliner seats, and the seats are quite good. There's a lot of room, and they're pretty comfy. But Saul sat behind me, and there was some guy sitting next to him who was just slurping on this drink for the first hour of the film, driving me insane. And there'd be a some quiet, tender, dramatic moment, and then you just hear behind me, and it was the worst. He seemed to finish his drink after about an hour, and then I could chill out a bit. But even then, he just he already ruined that first part of the movie, and I just couldn't get back into it because I was so angered from that. And otherwise, everyone was behaved. It was just that guy drinking that drink so loudly. Yeah, that guy was really bad.
Oh, yeah, I can see that. It's just terrible when you get these people munching. Like, I don't remember who was complaining about this. I think it was Matthew who said that, like, when you go to certain films, he wouldn't expect anyone to even have snacks. I mean, snacks is always a big part of it for me. I always bring snacks, but at the cinema, I would never ever bring loud snacks. I would never ever bring, like, things to be slurping on or crunchy things. I'll bring chocolates that I can, either like melt on the tongue or maybe popcorn, something like that. Not something like with a bag you have to wrestle with every single time. It's like for anyone who does that out there, that's just really damn disrespectful. So, how did you feel about the Nosferatu screening, Saul, hanging out with Lauren, and were you disappointed she couldn't get into it?
I don't know if I'm disappointed that she couldn't get into it. I think some of it is overreaction. I don't know if I should have got the timer out, but I think the slurping was only about 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes at the most.
What? That sounds awful, Saul. 15 minutes of slurping in a like 100-minute movie.
Yeah, look, it was for a significant part of it. It was annoying, but like Lauren said, beyond that, the audience was actually pretty good. There was one guy at the end who just got really shocked in the last 10 minutes and kept crying out oh no, and ew and stuff like that. And I just like that experience of watching films with people and sort of getting that reaction. I mean, one of my best film viewings in 2024 was Smile 2, because the two guys who I went with were laughing their heads off throughout, but the teenagers sitting in front of us were shrieking in terror. And it was just an amazing experience, the laughing and the shrieking at the same time. It sort of gives you an idea about how the people are feeling. So I liked hearing his reactions, even though they were over the top. The Nosferatu movie for me was a really interesting experience because it was a very social one for me. So I went along with a bunch of people, and then I met up with Lauren and her boyfriend shortly before the film, and we chatted about the film and whatever before going into it. And when I went to buy my ticket, I didn't realize that it was mostly sold out. So I sort of got sat next to the Slurpee guy without it really being a choice. Usually cinema screenings aren't really that packed because it was a general cinema. It wasn't like an art house one, so usually it's a bit more spread out. So I didn't really have the option to move away. But it was just a really great experience for me because I got to chat with Lauren and her boyfriend. Afterwards, I met up with somebody who I usually see at the local art house cinema, and we had a chat for a little bit. And then I chatted to Lauren and her boyfriend again, and then I chatted to the people who I came with to the movie. And it was just great. For me, part of seeing a film is experiencing it with other people and talking about the film and discussing it, just like those instant knee-jerk reactions. What are you feeling just then before you actually have time to process it? For me, that's part of the fun of it, and that's why I like going out to the movies so much. Is that I've actually managed to find different people who I can see regulars at Luna, our local cinema, or the Como Revival House, which is our local cinema which does films with 35mm. There's actually people there who I'm used to seeing who I can have a chat to before or afterwards. It's part of the experience. It's part of, taking in and appreciating the film. It's not just this static thing that I'm watching on home on an iPad with a pause button here and there. It's an entire experience.
Oh yeah, that sounds pretty up my alley too, Saul. I would absolutely love that. To just start getting to know all the regulars, forming those real life cinephile connections as well, because we are often very, very online, but so many cinephiles and film buffs just aren't online. They don't hang out in our usual spaces, and they coalesce places, and you can find them, and it can be absolutely awesome. So yeah, that's lovely to hear. And yeah, speaking with people about the films, it's usually quite good. I mean, I guess it can also be a bit of a letdown. I mean, I remember taking one of the few times I went to the cinema a decent bit was when there was a Tarkovsky retrospective in Malta, and I managed to bring along quite a few people. I had a great viewing of Mirror, where people actually really liked it. But then I also saw Soliaris with 3 people, and they were kind of groaning next to me, and I think that's one of my least favorite screenings as well. I mean, in fact, I don't think it was because of them. Maybe they had some impact, but Soliaris went down in my esteem after that viewing, and it only popped up on later rewatches again. So the cinema screening I had of Soliaris is actually my least favorite viewing of it. But yeah, that screening also had some other cock-ups too. Like for some reason, the projectionist forgot to put in sound for the first 5 minutes, and they didn't restart it. They only turned it on once people complained. That was so. There can be a lot of issues, especially at smaller art house screens as well. Annoyingly, that cinema you're not necessarily going to get at home, or at home you can fix things right away, etc. What about you, Adam? Do you feel like talking to people before and after a cinema screening, getting people's opinions, etc., can elevate the experience?
I mean, yeah, I guess it can elevate it. I would only really speak to one or two people who I've gone to the cinema with. Sounds like, Seoul has a different experience of cinema in general, which is a lot more social and a lot more like based on other cinephiles, whereas I'd only really go with my friends or family. But I do think it is nice to at the end of the film, it's nice to just have a few minutes to chat to someone about how you felt about it, because I think when I watch films at home, that I often want to speak about what I thought about the film, but then, I don't have anyone to say it to, since I'm watching films all alone. And in terms of what people were mentioning about like slurping and everything, I guess that can also be. I think I'm in Lauren's camp of like I'd rather the people watching the film were silent. I mean, like recently, for example, I watched The Substance at the cinema, and like I get that there was like satire and everything in it, but there was these two girls who were laughing like non-stop at everything, and you had like a weird contrast in audience reaction of people who were kind of like shocked and other people who were like hysterical laughter, and it completely took me out of the film, because you'd be watching something like a massive scene in the film, and it was like the loudest hysterical laughter. It got to the point that like we almost like told the girls to be quiet, which I never do, because it was like so off-putting. I guess if you interpret a scene more seriously and someone else finds it absolutely hysterical, it does kind of change the mood for you. I think in a comedy that you find funny, people laughing in the audience can actually enhance it in some ways, I think, in terms of everyone's laughing together. If there's like a couple people laughing very loudly and other people not, that's when I think it completely takes you out of the film. So I think cinemas can be immersive and make you concentrate more. But if there's like big distractions, they can also take you out of the film even more than being at home.
That's a great point, a great counter to Saul's as well in terms of distractions. Because I think Saul's main case for going to the cinema is that at home he feels distracted. At home there's all of these other things around that will draw his attention, be it his phone or, as we talked about before, daily chores and the workout regimens. But at the cinema, there's also lots and lots of things that can ruin your concentration and take your mind off different things and just straight out ruin it if there are people laughing at serious scenes or scenes that you think are serious. It's essentially like, imagine you're seeing, I don't know, seeing Citizen Kane or John Dielman, and you add a laugh track. Like, it's not gonna work. So yeah, I definitely get that, Adam. That's absolutely awful cinema experience. Wow, so bloody annoying. But to swing it back to you, Lauren, and I ask all of you guys the same thing. Even Saul, who loves the cinema, like, what do you think are the best things, the very, very, very best things about watching films from home?
Basically everything. As Sol mentioned before, that he feels like, yeah, he can get more immersed at the cinema because he doesn't have those distractions, but I don't get distracted by anything at home. Like, that's where it's most comfortable for me. And yeah, at home it's like, one, I'm dressed in my most comfortable like way. I don't have to wear a bra or shoes or like, what I call my human costume. I can wear whatever I want. I can like pause it if I need to. If I'm at the cinema and I need to go to the toilet, then all I think about is going to the toilet and I'm not paying attention to the film. So at home, it's like I can watch it on my own terms, in my own space, and where I'm most comfortable. And, and if I need to deal with my bodily needs, then I can, and I don't have to miss out. And I don't have to be distracted by other people, even when people aren't being like bad audiences. Just them being there is a distraction.
So essentially, even if people are not heard, they get themselves the fact that they're there. Got it. What about you, Saul? What do you think is the best thing about watching films from home, and why do you actually choose to watch films on your iPad rather than at a much bigger and comfier screen?
So, you got a few things in that question. The first point, what's best about watching at home, I'm tempted to go with Lauren's one about toilet, especially because with some of the art house cinemas, they don't have a lot of different toilets there. So I'm thinking about, what if I do hold it into the end of the movie, and then I'm going to be in this big queue to use the toilet. So maybe it's worth going during a point where it's not talking so much and whatever. So look, the toilet thing is definitely a big factor about why it's sometimes better to watch films at home. I'm usually pretty good unless it's very long. The Brutalist is coming out to cinemas soon, and my best friend in Portugal is obsessed with the idea of me seeing it while it's in cinemas. And I'm like, it's 4 hours long, man. If you can tell me when I should take a toilet break during the film, I'll see it in cinemas. I don't really want to miss out on part of the film, because I don't think I can. I don't know if I can last that long. I mean, I did 3 hours for Wolf of Wall Street when I was in cinemas in 2014, but yeah, generally I don't really see films that are longer than 3 hours without an intermission. So, but yeah, look, the other best thing about watching a film at home is having not so much the pause button, but the rewind button. If something suddenly takes me by surprise, I can then go back and rewind it, or if I look at the time I watch and I miss something important, I can go back and rewind. I mean, some of it does come into immersion. So I did see Spider-Man 2 yesterday, the Sam Raimi film, when it was re-released in cinemas, and for whatever reason, I checked my watch or whatever, I checked the time at the part where Spider-Man loses his mask on a train, and I still don't know how he lost the mask. But anyway, I thought, well, that's just part of it. That's what I have to accept of it, the whole immersion thing. I'm not going to be able to go back and rewind it, so I just have to get on with the film. But definitely having the rewind button is a nice thing to have, so I think that's good. You did throw in the other thing about why I watch films on an iPad, and we've covered that in previous episodes, so I'm not going to get into too much. It's just the convenience factor of being able to have the iPad wherever I am at home, so I don't have to be necessarily in front of the TV on the couch. I could be sitting at a table. I could take it to another room if I've got something very menial and not distracting, like folding laundry. It's not like I'm writing Shakespeare while I'm watching a movie, but if it's something very mild, I can do that and multitask while watching it. But it's just the convenience factor of being able to watch a film wherever you want to, not having to have that assigned space in your home where this is where you have to watch a film. It's like just being able to take it with you wherever you go around the house. It's just way too convenient, and it's just really a nice way of watching a film. And I guess I find it a bit immersive in a different sort of way because it's really close and really near you. It's not like where you've got the TV and you've got a table and maybe a few other things in the way before you actually get to the screen. The screen is right there sort of in front of your face, wherever far you want it to be away from your face. So I do like that sort of setup if it's something where I can't see it in the cinema, but the cinema is my preference at the moment. And if you're watching films at home, you've also got no chance of meeting directors. And I don't know where I was going to put it, but I was going to put it in today. The film that I saw today, the director was actually in the audience, so I got to chat to him afterwards, which was wild. So, I just love things like that.
Well, the last part is true. I can't argue with that. You're not going to meet the director at home. That would be a very, very odd scenario if you were watching a movie and the director just randomly came up and knocked on the door. It's like, hey, I got a notification. How lovely. Though, I mean, I wonder how comfortable your table seats, etc., are compared to your couch, though, if you prefer sitting at the table watching it on your tablet instead of sitting in a comfortable sofa with a big screen. And that's a much, much closer experience to the cinema. At least for me, and that's what I prefer. But no, I get it. I mean, if you put that tablet really close to your face, I mean, maybe it will feel feel that big, though. Even with the sound, I don't know. I really don't know. I can't even imagine it. And then again, I've never ever even tried to watch anything on a tablet or a phone. So except for YouTube videos or cooking instructions. So I can't really comment on that. What about you, Adam? What are the absolute best things about watching films at home?
Yeah, so I would agree with what people have said before about like needing to go to the toilet during a film, because there's been times in the past where I'm watching a film and then I need to go to the toilet, and then I'm like really hoping I'm trying to like time it so I can not miss something really important. Yeah, so you even missing like a couple of minutes can like make you miss something pretty crucial to the plot. So it's kind of like a huge distraction if you need to go during it. Whereas at home, obviously, you can just press pause and everything. You just press pause and come back to it, which is obviously a lot better. I even one time, like, this is my fault, but I remember one time arriving like 5 minutes late for a film at the cinema and then watching the whole film having missed like a fairly important opening scene. So, it's impossible basically to miss anything when you're at home unless like you're not that bothered about the film and you're not concentrating enough. And I think like Sol said, the fact that you can rewind at home is really important because it might it might be because you really like something, or it might be because like, you didn't hear something properly, or like there's various reasons why you might want to watch a tiny part of the film again. Yeah, whereas at the cinema, I think if you miss something, you're kind of stuck unless you like ask your friend, and then you could miss something when you're asking them. So, you know, I'm not saying like you miss stuff constantly, but there's even times maybe where I'm watching a film and I slightly don't understand something, and I might look at the plot basically on Wikipedia if I'm not following one part entirely properly, which I don't know, maybe it enhances or doesn't enhance the experience, but um, yeah, there's quite a few things like that I would say, and I guess since Chris has mentioned watching stuff on his phone quite a lot, I guess convenience is the main thing for me with the laptop as well. But also, I don't even have a TV in my room. So, and in my old flat, I had a TV in like this sort of shared living room, but I wasn't going to sit there and watch films all day. So I think, yeah, I don't have a TV. Like, I don't have a TV that's just mine that I can watch films on anyway. So it's not really an option. But I do think the laptop is, quite convenient. I would rather be watching stuff on the TV though. I just don't have the correct setup for it, to be honest. But I wouldn't use a phone like so.
There's a big difference between a phone and an iPad. It's like 4 times the size.
It's just as bad to me. I'm sorry. It's just as bad.
We can't all afford the kind of quality of TV that Chris has. So it's like the size of his wall. The whole wall was.
It's okay, I don't have a comeback from that because for you, anything less than, a 2 meter wide flat screen TV is too small, so I've got no comeback.
I'd like to flip it on because right now we talked about the best things about seeing things from home, and I agree with most of what you guys said. I think that the rewind is key, the pause is key. Like I don't personally think that films are really hurt by pausing them. Some immersion, maybe. There are some really cringeworthy films. Cringeworthy in a semi-good way that I've paused a couple of times just because I couldn't handle it in that moment. Maybe that would have been more impactful at the cinema where I could do that, but instead you just pause it and you keep playing it when you're ready. I think that the home cinema or home screen viewing is great these days. I think that with a big enough screen, with a good enough setup, you can get a great experience. Never as fantastic as at the cinema, I'll fully grant that. I think that nothing beats the big cinema experience. That's my view. I can see from the chat, definitely not Lawrence. But I would like to ask you, Lauren, and we're going to do a second round of this. What are the best things about seeing a film on the big screen? Like, are there any positives for you about seeing a film on the big screen? And like, if you ended up in the same scenario that I was in when I watched Happy End, where you're the only person in the entire theater, would then seeing something at the cinema be a great option for you?
I have actually gone to some screenings where it's only been like me or one or two other people, and they are better, but there's still all those other things like, you know, my bodily needs and having to wear my human costume and things like that that still are bothersome. But for me, like the times that I really love going to the cinema is when I've gone to Fright Fest, because I feel like there the audience seems to be mostly on the same wavelength. So, you know, it's all horror fans and the cinema is absolutely packed. But like people were talking about before about like reactions, if they're the opposite of how you're feeling, then it takes away from the film. But if they're reacting the same way that you're feeling to the same like extreme, then it can enhance it. So there's some films that I've seen at Fright Fest, which like when I think of the film, I think of seeing it at the cinema and the way the audience was reacting to it. And that can be really awesome. It just hasn't happened that often. And I don't live in London anymore, so I don't get to go to Fright Fest as regularly as I'd like to. And but for normal cinema experiences, one, it's nice to see something, especially if something's big and it's out and it's popular and everyone's talking about it. You can see it at the same time and be part of the zeitgeist for it or whatever. And if a film has like really special like sound design or music, is something that's really nice to see at the cinema. Like June Part 1, I really loved at the cinema, and I'm not sure I would have liked it as much at home because the sound at the cinema made it better, I suppose. But for a regular film, it's like almost always when I think, oh, I want to see this film, it's like I want to see it at home where I'm comfy, where I can pay attention to it. I've seen lots of my favorites at the cinema as well, but I never feel like anything is heightened or better at the cinema. Like 99% of the time, I could probably name all the films that were better because I saw them at the cinema, and it'd be like, you know, 5 or less. So, you know, it can enhance a film, but it's unlikely.
Well, at least you had some exceptions. I'm very pleased to hear that. That's a and yeah, it makes sense with some of these big spectacle, big special effect films too. Like when you see them on a smaller screen, they're not gonna sound as epic. And I think that, you know, there are certain films that are very, very, very much designed for the big screen. Like there's a lot of films that convert well to the small screen, but like something like Dune or like some films that inspired it, like Lawrence of Arabia, like the cinematography is all like designed for being on the big screen. And I think that when you see them on small screen, a little piece of it is probably lost. So yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I think we've heard from Saul already about all the things he loves about seeing films on the big screen, but is there anything you would like to add? Oh, and I see from the chat that you actually thought that Lawrence of Arabia was worse for you on the big screen, so tell us about it, please.
Okay, the problem with Lawrence of Arabia on the big screen is the film comes with an intermission. So there was the natural intermission, but then the cinema also added their own 15-minute intermission. And by the end of the film, I was just exhausted by it. It just felt really worn out. It felt like it was dragging on forever. And I'd only seen it previously on DVD, and I don't think I would have sat there for 4 hours continuously. It was ages ago, so I'm not sure. But I'm sure I would have taken some breaks in between watching it, and sort of being forced to sort of sit there and watch it in these 2 big 2-hour chunks with 2 15-minute intermissions or whatever it was in between. It was just like exhaustion, because the film actually went down in my estimation upon rewatch. I mean, there's been a few where they've gone down in rating for me when I've seen them at the cinema, but most of the films that I've seen at the cinema, I've seen tons of classics on the big screen. I think I'm up to 130 films that I've seen on the big screen from 1999 or earlier, so films when I was too young to see them in the cinema. I've now seen 133 and counting on the big screen, and the vast majority of them have gone up for me because it's a more immersive experience. But Lawrence of Arabia was definitely one of them that went down because, yeah, it was just so long and just felt so drawn out. And because Lauren reckons she's been who's only been to the cinema 303 times, because that's actually pretty close. It's in a spreadsheet. Okay, that's really interesting, because I've been keeping a record also, and last year, in 1 year alone, I went to the cinema 194 times. It sounds like a lot, but when you average it out, it's only 4 times a week. And then some of those were double features, so I'd see one film and there'd be a second film straight afterwards. So it's 194 films seen at the cinema, but it's probably averaging about 3 a week, which isn't too bad. And it's not that much, because I've got a friend who I'm sort of in competition with this year, because last year he managed to see 300 films at the cinema. So I'm not going to get up to 300 this year, but look, at the moment I'm on school holidays because we're recording this podcast in January. He's not on holidays, so I'm just getting ahead of him while I can. I'm not going to get to 300. I'm hoping to get to 200 because I came really close last year, but I think we're getting distracted from the question, which was what are the benefits of going to the cinema. Look, I just have to agree about the sound one. The sound one's probably the big thing. Sound more than visuals you feel in the cinema, because if it's got a really good sound design, the cinema vibrates. And there's nothing better than that. You can't really mimic that at home. Not with an iPad, not with the TV, unless you've got big subwoofers, which I don't. You can't really mimic the vibrations. And I had that when I saw Spider-Man 2 yesterday. It was just a vibrating during all the parts where Dr. Ock was getting out his legs and everything was vibrating. When I saw Mandy, the cinema was vibrating. Beau is Afraid, the birth scene, cinema vibrates. That vibration, the sound, you just don't get at home. I mean, the visuals you can sort of mimic a little bit to a degree, especially if you get a Blu-ray quality print. But yeah, the sound is the one thing that you can't mimic if you're seeing it at home.
Well, there are some pretty great sound setups that can mimic some of it at least, but yeah, absolutely, the sound is always better at the cinema. I completely agree. It just adds to all of it. And yeah, no, I mean, it's interesting on your point on Lawrence of Arabia and how bodily functions, which we keep coming back to, is a big problem with longer films at the cinema. Like, I'm somewhat torn here because I tend to feel like seeing longer films at the cinema is better. Because if you're seeing like a 3, 4, 5 hour film at home, I often feel like I really have to plan that out to be able to see it in one sitting, because otherwise life things are going to get in the way, like in so many ways. I'm going to be speaking with my wife. I'm going to be doing something. Maybe I'll have to stop and cook something, whichever, or someone will call. Obviously, I can turn off my phone. But at the cinema, the longer the film is, like you can really focus on it, you can be drawn into it, and I feel like cinema often really helps these long films. So I completely understand the bodily function thing. I mean, in Malta, which is one of the few things that it's a half positive, but it usually annoys me, is that every film in Malta has an intermission of about 10 minutes. It's mainly just to sell snacks. But they're random, and the people who are choosing where to have the intermission is exactly the same as with usual. It's just a random point. Like they cut in the middle of a sentence. Like I remember when I saw The Hateful Eight at the cinema, it literally stopped 2 or 3 minutes before the 4th chapter. So they could just have waited for the chapter divide, but no, they didn't. Whoever just decided, it was like boom, there we go. That's the intermission. So I hate that part of it, that there's no planning whatsoever, but it does help with bodily functions. What about you, Adam? What do you think are the best things about seeing films at the cinema? And do you prefer or avoid seeing long films at the cinema?
I think it just depends for me on the type of film. So if it's a film where the visuals are amazing and incredibly important, then I think that's the type of film that is really enhanced by being at the cinema. Whereas there's a lot of films that I don't think it makes too much difference if you're watching it on a phone like Soul, or if you're watching it on a laptop or TV or in the cinema. So yeah, I think it's visuals and sound. Sometimes there's sort of animated films, things like that I prefer at the cinema, because I think a lot of films that are based on visuals really need the cinema. And even like the sound of the cinema can enhance films. You know, if you watch like there's certain films you watch at home, and you really, especially like maybe if you're watching on like a really good TV, it's okay. But I think if you're watching on a laptop or a smaller TV, then there's certain films that you really feel like you're missing out on the experience, I think. So I think that's the main part where the cinema really enhances it. You know, there are films as well, like I saw The Holdovers and then I went and watched it at the cinema, and it's not really like a sort of visual film, but I felt like, you know, if I really like a film, it's also enhanced by watching it in the cinema. And also, if I know I really like a film, then going into the cinema, knowing you're going to really like it and knowing you're going to have a good experience also helps. I think the cinema is tougher if you don't if you don't really enjoy the film, then getting stuck in the cinema for ages is tough. But I think if you really love a film, your experience is going to be much better in the cinema than watching it at home in general. In terms of long films, I mean, I guess if I was completely loving a long film and really like immersed in it, it would also help. But if I see a film that's like very, very long, like 3 hours long, it'll definitely put me off, like very much put me off going to the cinema because it's just a long time to be, you know, sitting there, and like Lauren mentioned about bodily functions and stuff. Yeah, it's quite tough if the film is really long. And I mean, like, yeah, Lauren and I and a bunch of other people watched Napoleon with a live orchestra, and it was about like it lasted forever. It lasted so long that, you know, there was like an hour and a half intermission, and yeah, I was really tired that day, you know. So I spent most of the time fighting sleep and counting down the minutes. So you know, if a film's like 5 hours long or something, you know, the cinema can be quite draining unless you really love it. But so yeah, for me, I think the cinema experience, a lot of that depends on how much I like the film. And if I don't like the film, it's not really worth being in the cinema, and it's not going to help. But if I like the film a lot, or if the visuals are impressive, then certainly my experience will be enhanced by seeing it in the cinema.
Yeah, I wonder how I would have reacted to Napoleon if I'd seen it at cinema. I like the film, but I'm not a huge fan, though I'm not a big fan of Gans in general. I love the opening snowball fight, though. I think that would have been absolutely fantastic to see at the cinema. That's so bloody cinematic. And maybe the rest of the film would have been helped by the larger scope as well, because obviously it's a proper big epic that could maybe probably get a really nice boost there.
Yeah, that was mainly because I slept so badly that I was really tired, and I think if you know, that's the other thing about cinema, because you can't pause it. If you're really tired, you're kind of stuck there, and it was just such a long day. Otherwise, I probably would have liked it a lot more. I just was when you're tired in the cinema and you're in the dark and stuff. I think it's not amazing.
Yeah, exactly. That makes complete sense. I mean, I'm not even sure if I'd want to go to the cinema if I'm tired. I might start a film like, I mean, I think if I was in that situation where, you know, I'm seeing a film at cinema and getting really tired, that would probably break it down. Like, there's a lot of films, especially as I'm getting older, that I'm starting. I think I'll manage to see it till the end, but then I realize, like, at the halfway point, like, yeah, no, I'm getting too tired. I won't be able to focus. I'll finish it in the morning. And I think if I had just been forcing myself to go through them at the cinema, it probably would have hurt them. So that's probably one of those cases where cinema is indeed a bit weaker. Oh, and I did see that The Brutalist is actually coming to Malta, so maybe I'll actually be able to go out and see it then. That's one of the things that would actually draw me out. It's great to see that it's actually coming. I remember that The Favorite came to Malta, but that was just for a week, and then it was off, and I was really surprised. I thought it would be shown longer, but yeah, Malta does not really. Like, even like the Oscar films usually don't get a big showing here, which is so bloody frustrating. And just take everything full circle. What are the absolute worst things about watching films from home?
There's not a lot. I think one thing is finally sitting down to go watch something and the file format isn't compatible with the TV, subtitles are rubbish, or there are no subtitles. And that pretty much just puts me like I don't want to watch anything if that happens. That's pretty much it, really, for bad things. It's just like I've not gotten a good copy of the film. Yeah, I can't think of anything else. Everything else is perfect.
Got you. Pretty much everything is perfect. What about you, Saul? I mean, you talk about how, you know, watching these films on your well, okay, I'm going to be fair with you. Not your phone, but on your iPad. You talk about how that's the most convenient and wonderful thing. Are there any negatives about it at all?
The biggest negative about watching films at home for me, I guess on an iPad or otherwise, is just not having the audience reactions to it. I mean, yes, sometimes you get some really bad audience members, but things like comedies, thrillers, really out there horror films, they're sort of designed to be able to be appreciated with an audience. So I sort of like that audience thing. I'm sort of craving, I think especially comedies when they're getting shown on the big screen, classic comedies, I'm trying to make my way along to those. So that's probably the biggest minus for me about seeing stuff at home. Otherwise, yeah, it's a nice convenient thing. Lauren's just written in the chat that I like laugh tracks. It's not like the canned laughter that you see in sitcoms. It's just, something's generally funny. You're laughing, somebody else is laughing. It just sort of like adds to the vibe of it. I don't know.
I mean, laugh tracks became a staple for a reason as well. I mean, with all of those screens in past 2 years, like shot in front of a live audience. I think it can add a little bit. Like I think you've probably seen those cuts of The Big Bang Theory, for instance, with laugh track removed. So yeah, like even but that's probably canned. But even something that's not that funny on its own can be elevated by laughter. So if you're watching something on a comedy, you find it funny, and people are laughing along, you can be dragged into it. I think there's something social there that can really, really fit.
Yeah, it's the whole idea that you're experiencing with other people. So it's a film about an experience rather than a static thing. So you're seeing it with canned laughter or laughter that's been added artificially by sitcom makers. It's not that same sort of like experience of just being like generally bursting out into laughter. I mean, that's the biggest thing for me. Like I did say it towards the beginning of the podcast. I guess I just reiterate it again. When I watch a film at the cinema, it feels like I'm really seeing a film because I'm sort of like leaving my house. I'm going out. I'm deliberately going there to do it, to watch this film. So I'm making all this deliberate choice. I'm getting there in an environment without the distractions from home. It's an experience in itself. And then to share that experience with other people, I feel like that's what cinema's meant to be, that shared experience. I mean, cinema's how we understand the world, and without that sort of discussion afterwards and sort of that shared experience afterwards, it's not really quite the same thing.
Yeah, I completely get that. What about you, Adam? What are the worst things about watching films from home for you?
I mean, I think I've probably covered it already, but watching on a laptop, even though it's quite big, watching on a laptop isn't always ideal depending on the film. I think the biggest negative is probably not instantly speaking to someone about what you thought of the film or hearing other people, speak about it. Because I think chatting about the film, sometimes the whole journey home, you can be chatting about a film if it's really interesting. But I think that's the biggest negative for me because, when you watch it at home, unless you've instantly got people who have seen the film recently to speak to about it, is quite, I think that detracts from the experience sometimes because one of my favorite parts of the cinema experience is the kind of aftermath and dissecting a film. And I think so. I think for me that's the biggest negative, apart from the obvious one of like, the quality of what you're watching is vastly inferior at home than it would be at the cinema.
I get that, especially compared to laptop setup, which again, I mean, I used to use when I was at uni, and yeah, no, I completely get it. For me, the worst part about watching films from home are probably the distractions, like just randomly, casually speaking with my wife, something coming up, something happening, someone ringing the doorbell, there's always little things. Oh, and of course I have a dog as well who might need something or want something. So there's a lot of things that can distract and cause me to have to pause a film in the middle of it, and it can get a bit choppy. I don't think that the pause button is a big negative, but I think that if you like pause every 5 or 10 minutes, which has happened sometimes, that can really break up the flow of things. If it's like one pause and you continue it again, it's not a big deal. But when it's like that, it can definitely hurt things. And yeah, I do agree partially with Sol too, that you have a completely different focus when you go to the cinema. You're there specifically for it. You're paying extra to be there. Since I'm always getting snacks, that's also a much bigger bill, because obviously, as everyone knows, I mean, unless some countries have really, really cheap cinema snacks, I don't think that's the case. That's gonna like double or triple the price. So okay, maybe just double. If you get like a big popcorn and some drinks, but it is more immersive at the cinema. I do think that like if you're not watching on an iPad, if you're not watching on a laptop, and you have a proper big screen and a nice setup, or especially if you have a home cinema, I think that the line of difference decreases a lot, but it is still there. And I kind of answered the last question I'll ask all of you guys as well, but we're being a bit bombastic in this title, taking a lead from Lauren's book, and the name of this episode is, as you've already seen, Screw Cinemas. Watching films from home is just so damn comfy. And I would like to ask you guys, because you all agree that seeing films from home is pretty comfy, at the very least. How sad or devastated would you be if like most cinemas around you closed down? I take it from Saul, and we can start with you since you're the most passionate about it. I guess it like that would completely change your life essentially. Like, how would you feel if streaming took over completely, as a lot of people are fearing, and cinemas were closing down left, right, and center? Like, what would that be, an existential threat?
It would definitely massively change, I guess, my social life, because at this stage I'm not really doing much socializing other than meeting people at films and discussing them before and afterwards. So yeah, it would completely change my life. But then before the Revival House opened in Como in Perth, before they opened in about July of last year, I didn't really have that sort of outlet where I could constantly see classics on the big screen, and that's sort of why I've been going to the movies so often. It's not to see all the new latest releases and see every single film from 2024, it's to catch up with those films that have been re-put on the big screen, and I think I would miss that. I mean, if the Revival House shut down, I'd definitely miss it, because they're showing films in 35mm, and it's just so interesting things films projected versus seeing it on digital, so like properly projected, and you sort of got film quality, so it's never gonna pixelate no matter how much it gets blown up. So yeah, look, I would miss that if that went, and I guess if Austin is shut down, it would totally transform the way that I consume films. And I guess for me that would be a negative, because I do like the social aspect, I do like the experience of going out, I do like the reduced distractions. So yeah, I don't know if cinemas themselves are going anytime soon. I think some of the bigger ones might be, because they're just not drawing the crowds in. Because if it's just like a generic rom-com, people are pirating it, because going to the movies is just really expensive. But for the art house scene, for the festival ones, I think like some cinemas will still exist into the near future. I'm not sure about this 35mm Revival House that we've got at the moment, although I'm hoping they'll keep going. But yeah, look, I would definitely be quite sad if I couldn't go to the movies any longer. I guess I would probably become a little bit of a recluse. So yeah, I mean, the movies is what's getting me out into the world, and I'm enjoying that. So I'm going to enjoy it as much as I can while it lasts, at least.
Yeah, do. And how crowded are those revival screenings, by the way?
It depends on the film. I mean, some of them are more crowded than others. If it's like a really big, respected film, one of those film bro, in inverted commas, films, it gets quite a big audience in. So American Psycho was about 80 people, I think. Goodfellas was, I think, it was over 100. I'm not sure, it might have been 120. It was definitely over 100. The biggest ones on 35mm, it's getting the biggest audiences, are actually the anime, which is I know it's kind of annoying to me because, I mean, part of like seeing the 35mm was seeing like the skin tones, human skin tones look so much better projected rather than on digital. So, but the anime ones is what gets people. And like Princess Mononoke, I think had above 150, probably close to 200 people. So that was pretty packed. So I think that's the biggest one I've been to. So if they're going to survive, they're just going to have to keep showing Studio Ghibli films, which I guess is good, but you know, I would like to see more of those live action classics also on the big screen.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing to hear. Yeah, I mean, 80 to 140 plus people for revivals, that's fantastic. So hopefully they keep going for a long time. What about you, Adam? How would you feel if cinema started closing down around you? Like, seeing as you're watching on a laptop now, I guess it would be a really annoying thing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't go constantly, but I go a few times a year, and I think it would be very sad because I think whether I go a lot or not, I think it's really important that we have cinemas and we have. I think just having cinemas kind of helps encourage the film industry in some ways and keeps it going. I think it's a sort of traditional thing to go to the cinema, and I don't know how popular it is nowadays compared to the past, but I think it's essential that there's still cinemas. I mean, one thing I was going to mention, which we spoke about before the episode, was I'm going slightly off topic, but one of the big things about cinemas for me anyway nowadays is the actual experience in terms of like comfort and everything. In terms of the seats that they have there is like 100 times better. So when I was a kid, anytime I went to the cinema, there'd just be like hundreds of seats all packed in. You could barely move. You know, you didn't get a good experience. Whereas now, even when I go to sort of the big chains in my city, it's all like proper, like amazing, like reclining kind of seats, and you get like tons of leg room. There's no one, you're miles away from the seats in front, the seats next to you. Like it's pretty amazing. So I think cinemas in general have had to adapt to the sort of challenges of streaming and everything. So for me, I think the prices have gone down a bit. The quality has gone up at the same time. So I think cinemas have had to adapt basically, yeah, to the changing environment. And I do think it would be a real shame to if we ever lost that because, you know, sometimes going with your friends, going with family, you know, it can be a very great experience, which is difficult to replicate from home. So I think the social aspects are really important as well. But I just think in general, it's important having cinemas to keep boosting this sort of film industry. And, you know, at work, there's always people talking about how they've just been to the cinema, they've seen something, and I think it adds a lot to the industry in general.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, such a big part of the revenue and the ability to make films comes from that. Though a larger and larger number comes from streaming too, and a lot of art house films, which is what I'm most excited about. And how like you have the grants around the world and they pop up on Mubi and a few art houses and festivals, and they're never gonna come to a cinema near me, and that's really annoying. I mean, I'm going to be a bit of a downer here because, like I said, the cinema experience is so poor in Malta. I probably wouldn't even notice if most of them shut down because it's just so bloody abysmal in what they're showing. I did go into the overview now for showing. There's nothing really interesting showing at the moment, but they are, like I said, they are going to do the Brutalist, and apparently a Complete Unknown is coming too. I'm semi-interested in that. So there are some more films that I might be interested in now than usual, probably just because it's the Academy season. But it might actually at least get me going here in Malta. I just wish that we got a proper art house. The one that we have doesn't show films anymore. They used to have a membership, but barely. It's bloody ridiculous. So I guess maybe I am in the semi worst case scenario. But yeah, no, I hope that it's open something new, that something better happens. But yeah, I wouldn't be devastated if the big chains here closed down because they barely show anything that ever interests me. Sadly. So if anyone's listening, fix that and get me out. Though I guess I might not be the biggest demographic either. Like they're not gonna put on All We Imagine as Light just for me, sadly. Like they put on Happy End, probably just for me. Oh well, and I thought it would make sense to end this episode with you, Lauren, because you're the person who might actually live up to the title here of Screw the Cinema, the experience, because watching films from home is just so bloody amazing and comfortable. So how would you feel if most of the major cinemas started closing down? Like, would it bother you at all?
Well, personally, I wouldn't care. It wouldn't affect my life at all. But I mean, it would be concerning because it would be like what's happening to cinema, that the cinemas are all closing down. So I agree that, you know, the financial elements for the film industry are important, but like I don't care. I don't as in I don't care if they're not there for me to go to, but I do care if it means that films aren't going to get funded or be made anymore.
Yes, good point. So I guess that's the completely cold and calculated version of it, essentially. Like, if the cinemas fail, it's going to be harder and harder to get films produced. I mean, maybe the streaming services are just going to be that profitable at one point, but I'm not even sure if that's the case. I mean, we're hearing some negative murmur there too, and yeah, we better just all be hoping and praying that the cinemas stay open, that people keep going, and that the cinema in Malta gets better. Please make it better so I can start going again, please. And with that, I think we come to the end of this episode. We'll have a thread up for this on icmforum.com. Oh, and a plug. If you are watching new films at cinema and have no one to discuss it with, we have a sub-forum specifically for new film discussion where all of the new big films get a thread, and if it's not there, you can start it, and people who have seen them will actually jump in and talk. And it's created for just this reason, for people who feel like, you know, they really want to talk about these recent viewings, and it's a point where so many people have seen them at the same time. So definitely go check that out as well. And with that, thank you so much for listening, and join us again soon.
You have been listening to Talking Images, the official podcast of icmforum.com.